Welcome to Soul Sense from Samaritan's Well Counseling, and we have a special guest on today, Darci Steiner. Welcome, Darci.
Thank you so much, Mark. I'm so excited for our conversation.
Hey, we're so glad you're here. Darci is an author, she's a speaker, she's a nutritionist. She's also a wife and mother, has 2 grandchildren and 1 on the way. That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
She's written a book back in 2021. She wrote a book called Beyond the Thorns, Discovering Gifts and Suffering. And she's been working 3 years on another book called, let's see if I get the title right, The Greatest Hits of the Bible, Experiencing God Through the Psalms.
That's right.
So you're working on that one. Tell us a little about your story, Darci. Could you just tell us, I know that you've went through 2 major seasons of disability in your life, but tell us a little about what's behind those books, one that you've written and one that's coming out. And of course, you get to speak about overcoming in seasons of disability. So tell us a little about your story.
Yeah, so I have had a couple of seasons of disability. I have a condition called complex regional pain syndrome, and there is no cure. However, I don't believe that anyone should ever say that.
Okay.
Because with God, anything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I, in fact, was healed from this CRPS one time many years ago, and then I got it again. But I had a 9-year remission. I could be in the textbooks. I could, because of God. And so, yeah, in, let's see, what year was it? 2000, I think. 2000, I fell down the stairs. And my kids were very young. And this back injury from this fall down the stairs had me bedridden for a couple of years. Wow. And that's when the CRPS crept in. I don't know when, and it wasn't diagnosed until many years later, so I didn't know what I was living with. And at that time, I was severely depressed.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I didn't trust God because I was like, how could you take this precious family and jumble us up like this? Why did you give me 2 kids if I can't raise them? I struggled so much in my relationship with God. And so there was that. And I became malnourished because I couldn't eat, because when you're in pain, you're not hungry. And so one thing led to another, to another, to another. And I almost died. But I had a counselor who was a nutritionist. She was a counselor like you.
Okay.
And she was also a nutritionist. And she said, you know what, Darci? I see you coming home from these doctor's appointments so discouraged, and I don't think that's helping you. So what are you going to do to make changes? Sure. What are you going to do? And I struggled with that because I'm like, I've been going to the doctors. I've been doing, and so I was a little bit defensive and resistant. And then I looked over at some books that were waiting on the table because I had enrolled in a nutrition program before I had my fall. Okay. And my first set of books came, and I was like, I'm going to go to school. Sure. Even though I can't sit up, I'm going to do school. And so I sat up for 5 minutes a day, and I began that task.
Wow.
And, that question mark has helped me, that my counselor gave me, has helped me throughout my disabilities.
What are you going to do was the question, right?
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Wow. Because isn't it true that when you go through a disability, you can start just believing, oh, I can't do nothing. I'm hurting. I'm weak. There's nothing I can do. And you can get that negative mindset. And
Hmm.
and even 5 minutes a day sounds like it started to be a breakthrough.
Absolutely. And those 5 minutes, this is what resilience looks like.
Okay.
Resilience looks like one tiny step after another, consistently. And over time, those 5 minutes grew to 10 minutes, grew to
Wow.
20 minutes, grew to an hour. But it was slow progress, and it took me
Wow.
6 years to earn that degree.
Whoa. Okay. That's
6 years.
resilience.
That's what, for me, that's
Mhm.
how I define it.
Mhm.
It's what it took for me. But it began with that question. And that question has come up again repeatedly in my life. What are you going to do?
Wow. What are you going to do?
Yeah, how am I going to take some responsibility for this and not just be angry or hurt or blame God or, any number of things. But consistency over time, we can thrive even in disability.
Darci, it reminds me of my favorite definition of faith without works. We see that in James, and one pastor taught it like this: faith without corresponding action is dead. Your corresponding action started with 5 minutes, and then it went to 10 and 20 and in an hour. And finally, wow, you accomplished your goal. And in the meantime, you continued to get a little stronger every day.
I became my case study.
Really?
I had no idea what this was going to look like, but I
Mm-hmm.
became my case study. And they actually only give 4 years for the program. But
Oh,
because I was progressing, they allowed me
uh-huh.
to continue. I
Oh,
mean, they
that's
weren't just
good.
going to cut it off and say, no, you can't do this. But I was my case study. And so I'm writing up all this stuff and I am getting better, Mark.
Wow.
I was not walking at all. I was using a commode by my bedside
Wow.
and staying in bed all day. And the
Wow.
kids would jump on the bed and play with me on the
Mm-hmm.
bed.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't walking, and I had to be carried down the stairs and to go to doctor's appointments. But I began pool therapy, which also helped.
Okay.
But by the time I earned my degree and I had been doing pool therapy and my nutrition
Mm-hmm.
program on myself, amino
Mm-hmm.
acids, especially, which is my favorite topic
Okay.
in nutrition. I love talking about amino acids because they helped me so much. And in my
Wow.
practice, I've seen them help other people so much.
That's so good to know. What's the gist of amino acids? How do they help you physically? Because, we're always looking at one of those three things in our podcast: spirit, soul, or body. And you're
Yes.
saying amino acids really help the physical body for certain things.
Oh, for so many things, particularly, well, for people that don't know, amino acids are the building blocks of protein.
Okay.
So when I wasn't eating, I wasn't feeding my brain, my
Oh,
mood, I wasn't feeding my muscles. So amino acids, there's different ones that do different things for your body,
hmm,
which is why we need all of them.
okay.
And so amino acids for me, like I take DLPA every day, which is
Okay.
DL phenylalanine. Okay,
Okay.
DL phenylalanine helps with mood. So I take it every day. Now, I need to give a disclaimer. I'm not giving nutrition advice here.
Sure.
If you are listening, get a doctor, talk to a
Good.
doctor or a
Good.
nutritionist. So I need to
Doctor or
put that out there.
nutritionist. Yeah.
Yeah, a nutritionist will know more,
Mm-hmm.
but that helped my mood, my muscles. Creatine is an amino acid.
Mm-hmm.
Glutamine helps with muscle function. Um, and then tyrosine also helps with mood. So, and sleep. GABA. GABA helps with sleep. Theanine helps with sleep. So,
Wow.
do you see just from those examples, so many people can't sleep? Well, we need to sleep to get better.
Oh, yes, it's the foundation. Yeah, for it physically and emotionally.
And our mood, so much relies on our mood, our sleep, and our muscle function right there. I mean, we've covered off so many things just from that. And so when I work with my clients, I give a questionnaire so that I can determine what amino acids someone might need, what they're lacking. And then we go from there. So, yeah, that was
That's
one of the
awesome.
things that helped me get better. Hmm.
That is so good to hear. I love to hear about, some particular things that really helped. Darcy, tell us about, you talked about being carried up the stairs. That sounds like a husband duty. Tell us about how your husband stepped up during this time.
I call my husband, his name is also Mark,
Okay.
but his nickname is Remarkable,
Ah,
because he has been remarkable throughout this
wow.
whole thing. When this first happened, we were both really struggling, but over the years, we have both grown and we have grown closer together. And he tells me, Darcy, this is not something that is yours. You don't
No.
have to feel bad about what it's putting me through. And it puts him through a lot because he's a caregiver. But he said, no, 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 we don't look at it like that. This is as much for me as it is for you.
Wow.
God is teaching me as he's teaching you. And we are in this together. This is our story. We're one. And God wouldn't allow, you to go through this without teaching me something, and vice versa. So he's remarkable. And yeah, we do struggle sometimes. And I have to let him go and just do his Mark things with his guys,
Sure. Sure.
because I also need to not put things on him that are God's. So there's a quote, I wish I knew who this quote was from, but I don't.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
it says, it's a terrible thing to place on a man all that Christ is to be.
Wow.
So I can't expect Mark to be everything.
Right.
And so when I send him away to do his Mark things, I depend on God, and I spend time with God, and I get what I need from God that Mark can't give me, that he's not supposed to give me.
Yes.
And so when he says I need time, I'm like, okay, I'm fine. I'm fine because I have God in my relationship with him.
So
So
it
he's a good
seems like
guy.
he's a good guy. Absolutely. I love hearing about caregivers in special circumstances like this. There's a great radio show you may be familiar with every Saturday morning. I think it's on American Family Radio. A caregiver like Mark, whose wife has been debilitated for many decades. And it's a beautiful, uplifting show. But
Hmm.
Mark, I think, should do some podcasts or write a book, maybe himself. But I will tell you what you just described, Darcy, to me is like Mark has taken this on as not just your burden, but it's
Hmm.
our burden. So we're
Hmm.
going to face it as a team, and he's going to give everything he can. But you've grown in understanding that I can't get everything I need from Mark, and he doesn't have an unlimited supply like the Lord does. And
Right.
so to me, those two things can make for something really profound in a difficult and challenging, thing that you've faced here.
It's how we've grown closer together rather than farther apart, because oftentimes this kind of situation can break up families. It can break
Yes.
up marriages,
Yes.
but it can also strengthen marriages. if you let Christ be Christ and not expect the caregiver to be all, or if you don't take on, like Mark has, this as a team. This is, God has allowed this for me too. And suffering brings us closer to God because we intertwine our lives with this suffering and
Yes.
we find purpose. Our purpose is not defined without suffering.
Yes.
Like Paul. Paul was used by God to write more books in the Bible than anyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And God used that suffering to work that in him. I think that's beautiful. And Paul, he reached for something. We have to continually reach for the next thing so that suffering doesn't define us. What are we going to reach for? What are we going to do outside of our ability ourselves that will show everyone around us this isn't Darci, this is God working. But without our willingness, you've seen it over and over again, I'm sure, Mark, without willingness
Yes.
to do something beyond what we can do and focus on something beyond our suffering, we'll stay stuck in our suffering.
Absolutely. And Darcy, I've seen that so often in my life and people that I counsel. And I tell people, one of the most powerful prayers in the world can be, Lord, I'm willing to be made willing.
Yes. Oh my
You
gosh, I
know,
love that.
that prayer is beautiful. And I was just looking up the original serenity prayer. And a lot of people only have heard the short version, but listen to the original because you reminded me of it.
Hmm.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the
Hmm.
pathway to peace,
Hmm.
taking as he did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely useful to God and my fellow beings.
I love that.
Isn't that beautiful? I'll send that to you after the show.
That'd be
But
great.
there's such a mystical thing and a misunderstood thing about suffering, isn't there? Right? In general, we just think, oh, I want to do everything possible to avoid suffering. I feel pity for people that are suffering a lot, and whatever it takes for me and my loved ones to avoid it. But then we go to like Hebrews 5:8, and it says, yet though he was a son, he learned obedience from the things he suffered.
Hmm.
Whoa. How has suffering helped you to learn obedience? Because I know if it worked with Jesus, it must have worked with you too. I mean, daily pain for so many years. Share that with us, Darcy.
Without this level of suffering, I would not be as close to God.
Okay.
It has been the determining factor of how deep I've gone with God. I have seen him, and this is, I think, what he has purposed for all of us because all of us suffer in some
Yeah,
way.
there are. Yes.
And so, like, again, I'll go back to Paul. He suffered, God was trying to make him humble, right? He knew he
Yep.
needed to be humble. And
Hmm.
humility is not weakness, it is power and strength in living with God in that humility. And when we live upside down, like in the Sermon on the Mount,
Hmm.
you know, the meek, the humble, the poor in spirit. I am poor
Yeah.
in spirit. I am
Yes.
poor in spirit. I live
Yes.
upside down. right? But I have the kingdom of heaven. And so why would I be depressed when I
Mhm.
have the kingdom of heaven? And we all can look through a different lens, take out the night goggles, reframe it, do any kind of um, looking at our suffering differently. But your question about obedience, I spent a lot of time in my Bible.
Okay.
Um, I'm not fully obedient. I struggle. I struggle a lot. And I told God the other day, I said, I'm awake in the middle of the night because of pain. And so I pray or I sing. But I told him, I said, I trust you at this point, which kind of surprised me because I
Hmm.
can't say that I've always been able to say that.
Hmm.
But I said it and I said, it's not that I don't trust you, it's that I'm sad.
Yes.
And so I think it's important to separate our emotions from trust. I think we can still trust God. And just because we're sad about it, I'm sad that I can't walk on the trail behind my house, yes.
Yeah.
And I can express that to God, but it doesn't mean I don't trust Him
Hmm.
because I think He's got something going. I
Hmm.
think He's got a plan like He has for David. And in all my studies in the last 3 years in the Psalms and about the life of David, that's where I've focused my studies. And I've seen David and Paul and all these people in the Bible suffer.
Yes.
Well, look at what God did with their lives. So we have to look back to look forward. We have to look back at all God has done. And when I look back and I see God healed me from this, and I opened a private practice and I taught
Hmm.
sports nutrition at the
Hmm.
local high school, and I'm on my feet and I have no pain for
Wow.
9 years. And
Wow.
then I re injured my foot, and I'm like, really, God? What didn't I learn the first time?
Yeah.
What didn't I learn? Why again? And so, yeah, I was lamenting then, and I felt like I wasn't trusting God then. So, again, resilience over time, little by little.
And
God has
Darci,
taught me obedience.
that's amazing. Darci, you've said something very profound. It's a simple statement, I think, but it's so profound to me. I learned to trust God even as the suffering is continuing. I think so much of us like, okay, Lord, I'll believe in you. I'll have faith if you end the suffering, if you end the pain. But if you go back to like the example of David, for years he's being chased for his life by Saul. He's going through the suffering of being on the run, being a fugitive. Joseph, for years he's in slavery in prison. Didn't they have to trust God while they were suffering? I mean,
Yes.
that's what you're saying, right? You got to a place where I'm going to trust you, Lord, even if there's pain today.
Yeah. And again, like I was a little surprised to hear that coming out of my mouth.
Hmm.
And I think, sometimes we don't see the growth, that we're growing in our
Hmm.
trust in God or
Hmm.
whatever. But day by day, little by little, again, inch by inch, we keep progressing forward. And that is resilience. And that gets us somewhere over time. We can't, God never works in a hurry, right? Like
Right,
we hear that over and over. He's never in a hurry,
right.
but He is working. He is working behind the scenes and He's working something beautiful.
And I get a picture of this resilience, Darcy. It's like this resilience that you're talking about. We could also see is kind of the foundation of your faith. And every day that foundation is getting stronger. Jesus called out sometimes, "Oh, ye of little faith," and this one has great faith. it's clear that our faith can grow, and it's God wants it to grow. One minister said, it's like anything, you're going to have to feed it and exercise it to make it grow.
Hmm.
But I'm curious, Darci, would you tell us a little bit about the times, and I'm sure in some ways it's ongoing, that you've had to overcome being offended with God or having thoughts against him?
Yes. When I was injured the second time, which I've already mentioned a little bit,
Mhm.
I I just kept praying for healing, and that was
Mhm.
my prayer. And then I was like, you know what? You're just going to do what you want to do anyway.
Yeah.
So why pray?
Yeah.
What's the point? Because you're just going to do what you want to do anyway. And so I stopped praying. And I mean, I've prayed my whole life, so I really had to work at stopping.
Yeah.
Um, but I just kept saying, it does no good because I have suffered for years. I already went through this horrendous suffering that took me years to recover from. And
Right.
then, bam, in a moment, in 1 second, I'm back to where I was. And I have to start all over again.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
then I began to realize that my prayers weren't really prayers anyway.
Hmm.
They were rubbing the genie bottle. They were
Oh.
asking God, do this, do that.
Wow.
Can I have this? Can I have that? I was rubbing the genie bottle, Mark. I wasn't
Oh,
praying.
wow. That
I
must have
was
been
just,
hard to face that.
oh my gosh. I was like, all I'm doing is asking for stuff for me.
Yeah.
And then I started praying again, but I started praying for other people. And I realized what I didn't learn the first time. It began to emerge that I was very focused on myself the first round.
Hmm.
This time, I'm going to be focused on other people.
Oh, wow.
And so I started praying for other people and I came to a place and I said, okay, God, if this is where you're going to have me, this is where I'll stay
Mm.
and I won't walk again, but I can make a difference. I'm
Wow.
still here for a reason and I can make a difference in other people's lives by praying for them. I can't do anything for anyone,
Mhm.
is what I thought.
Right.
But then that changed me because I realized I need to focus outward. I need to turn my pain outward. And so that's why I wrote a book.
Wow.
That's why I wrote
That's the
Beauty
Beauty
Beyond the Thorns.
Beyond the Thorns book.
Yep. That's why I wrote that because I began to discover there are gifts in this. This is like a treasure hunt. I began to be grateful because my counselor, the same counselor that taught me before, was helping me again. And
Mhm.
she said, okay,
Mhm.
is there something beautiful in the room right now that you can
Hmm.
look at? We're,
Hmm.
we're talking on the phone.
Mhm.
And I said, well, there's a picture of a flower on a calendar.
Mhm.
And she said, okay, recognize the beauty in that.
Wow.
And so I did. And I began to notice beautiful things,
Wow.
even on a calendar hanging in the office. Things that you would not normally be grateful for, I learned to be grateful for.
Yes.
That is
She
one
helped you
example.
reignite the wonder, right, Darci?
Yes, and I didn't realize all the things I took for granted.
Mhm.
I can't drive, but every time I could take a step to the bathroom instead of using the commode, I was
Yes.
grateful.
Yes.
And so I began to learn these treasures and I was praying for other people and I wrote my book, and then I started working on my other book, and I started speaking to try to help other people, and
Hmm.
led a Bible study, and trying to focus my pain outward instead of focusing on my pain, focusing on the thing I was reaching for, and helping other people and loving God and letting God use my suffering for His glory. If this is what you want to do, I'm not going to rub the genie bottle anymore.
Yep.
I'm going to stop, because that was hurting me.
Right.
That was hurting me because I was like, why aren't you answering this, genie?
Hmm. Hmm. It's almost like holding God hostage, isn't it? It has to be this way and this time and this. Yes,
Mm-hmm. So, long answer to your question, but
that's a good answer. I'm reminded of your turn, you said, from self to others, because we look at Job and all the suffering he went through in that famous verse towards the end, and God turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends.
mm-hmm.
God got his eyes off him to intercede for his friends. And
Mm-hmm.
he had already dealt, I think, with his offense toward God. I don't think Job was offended with God about the bad things that happened to him. He seemed to accept that with this great step of faith. But when his friends started falsely accusing him and saying, "You must have done something wrong to be going through this much suffering," it was a false accusation. And I think he did build up some offense with God. And he said, I deserve a fair hearing or a fair trial.
Yeah.
If I've done something terrible, I should at least have a chance to, hear what I'm being accused of. And of course, God straightened all that out. And Job took that great pill of humility a couple times there. And what does he do? He finally gets to that place of releasing his thoughts against God. I think when you go through suffering, you have to first overcome that religious spirit that I'm not supposed to be mad at God. And you have to acknowledge, okay, I do have these thoughts against you. I'm going to be honest, just like you were saying. And then you have to go through a stage of humbling yourself and finally get to that place where you release your thoughts against God. And people get confused over that. Well, how can you forgive God? God can't sin. It's not really that you're forgiving him for sin. No, he doesn't sin. However, we in our hurts can have thoughts against him,
Mm-hmm.
right? We just do. We see John the Baptist there and Jeremiah there and Lamentations 3, and we see Job and others. And so you get to that place where you can say, Lord, I have had these thoughts against you, but I refuse to hold on to them.
Mm,
And of
right.
course, I'm sure you've had, also, just like Job, you've had well meaning people that have, said things or done things that have been hurtful that you've had to overcome that too, huh?
Oh, yeah. And people are well meaning.
Yeah.
They just don't know.
Yeah.
Unless you've severely suffered,
Yeah.
you just don't know what to say. And sometimes I
Yeah.
think it's just best to just please just be there,
Yes.
you know? And don't even ask what can I do for you? Just show up.
Yeah.
Like,
Just show up.
just show up. Just be there, and then you'll see the needs,
Yeah.
you know? And I have a
That's,
friend that does that.
oh, that's so good.
Mhm.
That is so good. She just shows up. I tell people it's the same thing if someone is grieving or if there's a death or a loss. Just being there, just your
Mm,
presence, just showing up. There's not magic words, there's not Christian platitudes. I'm afraid to say some of the platitudes in the Christianese kind of make it worse instead of better. But your
mhm.
presence and just, you see a need and you take care of it. That's probably what has helped the most with friends and support.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it is overwhelming, when you're grieving or you're going through something severe. And so when somebody just is by your side and they don't really say much, but they're there and they're like, where's the vacuum?
Good.
And it helps Mark more than it helps me.
Sure.
And so I'm like, it's right over there. Thanks. You
Thank
know?
you. That's beautiful. Darci, would you take a few minutes and tell us about some of the things you've learned about experiencing God through the Psalms?
Yes. So I have been working on a book, a new book for 3 years now. So I've been immersed in the Psalms and the Old Testament. Um, and it has been a joy. I get to spend my days in my Bible, and I have researched, and I am so excited. It's a book that I'm just beginning to query to agents, and so it's not picked up yet, and so I don't know that that will be the title. Although I love that title,
Sure.
I hope it's the title. But the greatest hits of the Bible are the Psalms. Like the
Hmm.
greatest hits of the 70s, or the greatest hits of the 80s. The greatest hits of the Psalm of the Bible are the Psalms. And so what I do, a lot of people when they read a psalm, they don't know its backstory.
Okay,
Like
sure.
when David says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Okay, so where was he? What did he mean? Well, he was hiding in a cave with the distressed, the discontented, and those in debt. 400 men hiding in a cave with him. And imagine being in that cave with David and hearing him strum his harp and singing this to God the next morning.
Wow.
And you're one of
Wow.
those men in the cave.
Mm.
What would your reaction be? Wouldn't you be like, God loves me?
Wow.
You know? So I combine the backstories with the Psalms so that the reader knows what is going on when that psalm was written. And we don't know the backstories, the history of all the Psalms.
Hmm.
So I choose the ones where we do know the backstories so that we can have a full picture. It's like putting puzzle pieces together, and building this beautiful picture of what was being conveyed. And so that's what I've been able to do the last 3 years, and it's been a joy. And so I hope it gets picked up because I'm really excited about it. And but it's kind
That's
of my
wonderful.
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Darcy, when you study in depth the psalm, where someone there is so much of the psalms are in response to suffering, aren't they? Um,
Many of them are laments.
yeah, and so you read and some of them, hey, some of them are angry with God, angry with
Yeah,
others, they're laments, they're grieving, they're crying out to God. um there must be so many parallels as you've studied the Psalms and the suffering that you've went through.
absolutely. Absolutely. When I've seen David, like you had already mentioned, he was running from Saul
Hmm.
and his son,
Hmm.
for many years. His son wanted him dead too.
True.
And
Oh, that was his second round of suffering.
oh,
Did you ever think about it that
wow.
way? Right? And
No.
Joseph had a second round. Well, maybe three, but he had his brothers, and then he, of course, which put him into slavery. But then he had the prison, was the second round for him. But
Yep.
yeah, David's second round was with his son.
Yeah. Wow, you're right, Mark. No, I did not put that together in all these
That just
3
came to
years.
me.
Thank you.
Add that to your book.
I will. I don't talk about me in the second book. The
I
first book I
get
talk
that.
about me,
I
but just
get
a
that.
smidge about me. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's very parallel, you know, in different ways. But yeah, it's there's so many laments that talk about suffering. But I'll tell you what, those laments, all but one of them, end in a turn, like I
Yes.
had to turn,
Yes.
you know, a turn of, but you are God.
Yes.
Yet, but there's these turning words, the yet,
Yes.
the but, the therefore, the however.
Yes.
Look for those in the Psalms because that's the turning point from the lament is, but you are God, yet you will do this. Therefore, I can trust you. That's how the laments end, and that's how we can handle our suffering. The Bible is so beautiful in how it helps us walk through daily suffering. Yes.
It's really beautiful. And you mentioned something early on, Darcy, and it had to do with the symptoms that you were going through. And I'm trying to remember kind of the phrase that you used. But I learned a long time ago we have to be honest about the symptoms where we are today. We don't deny those symptoms. Oh, I know you were talking about. Well, I'm never going to say that it's permanent, that it's a lifetime, because I'm going to leave room for God to work, right?
Right.
And one minister said it this way. He said, "We don't deny the symptoms, but we deny the right of the symptoms to stay forever." And it's kind of like what you're saying here. We're gonna leave that door open for God to heal, even though we're not. We refuse to for it to be like the genie in the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
How would you differentiate that? Maybe we could close with kind of this: differentiate trusting God versus the genie in the bottle.
Great question. You know, God is anything but a genie.
Hmm.
I think the difference for me
Hmm.
has been just this slow, consistent, progressive trust
Okay.
in Him. And yes, there was that time. We have to, we have to expect that there will be times where we go through difficulties,
Yep.
even in our relationship with God, and we're
Yes.
mad at Him. That's
Hmm.
just life. You
Yes.
know, it's, I've been so angry at Him. You know, I've yelled at Him out loud and all of that. But a genie wouldn't hear that. God can
Hmm.
handle the anger.
Hmm.
It's still a part of our relationship because in that anger, I'm being real with God. And so I think differentiating the real God from the genie in the bottle and the trusting God, you have to be real. You
Yes.
have to be real with God and tell Him, like I told Him, but I'm very sad. I do trust you, but I'm very sad. And
Yeah.
anger is easier, right? It's easier to
Yes.
be angry than it is sad. So I
It
think I'm
is.
in a good place where I can tell Him, I'm sad.
Yeah.
I'm not angry right now. I'm sad. And this is what I feel and why I feel it. And it's a relationship. And that's why in my book I talk about experiencing God. It's not learning more about God, it's experiencing Him in
So
relationship.
good.
He
That's so.
is
That's beautiful.
He is a living God
Yes.
who wants a relationship with us. So let's relate with Him.
That is so beautiful, Darcy. And I tell people as a believer, and this is very scriptural, go look at the seeds that were planted and the seed and the sower, but every believer has to overcome the test of offense. And for some people, it is drawn out, for a long time.
Mm.
And I will tell you, Darci, as hard as this has been and still is, I know day to day, you have and you are overcoming that test of offense beautifully. I can
Mm.
see it and hear it in your spirit. And I just commend you for trusting God even while the suffering continues.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on with us today. It's been a beautiful story. Remember Darci's book that she already has, Beauty Beyond the Thorns, Discovering Gifts and Suffering. And then look for the new one to come out. You may have to look under her name because the title could change when the publishers get it. But so glad to have you on. We really appreciate it, Darci.
Oh, thank you, Mark. I've really enjoyed talking and learning. I appreciate your wisdom and your relationship with God. I think, it was a beautiful conversation. So I appreciate it so much.
God bless you. And everyone will have Darci's information attached to the podcast. And remember, you can always reach us at SamaritansWell.com. Till next time. If you enjoy this podcast, please do us a favor and like, subscribe, and share with others who might need it. And you can find additional resources at SamaritansWell.com.